Hey YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Keh-me and you are watching Keh-me on YouTube. Today's video, as you can already tell by the title, is basically going to be all the things I learned about working in a care home and the best way to go about being a carer, and basically give you guys some insight about the truth behind working in a care home, because I know I had no clue about the industry or like that sort of workplace before going into it. I've never had work experience in a care home. I've never had any family members in a care home, and no one around me has worked in a care home either. I'm gonna stop rambling and I'm gonna get straight into it. I've got 5 main things for you guys, and the first one is it is so physically and emotionally taxing. Now obviously I feel like everyone kind of knows this. Going to a care home, you kind of like understand that, you know, you're going to be dealing with people that are approaching the end of their life, so they're going to need your help more than ever. That's why you're there. But I don't think the level of it is understood until you actually get into that environment. You are doing things like supporting another human being's weight, and this is a grown human being, grown men, 70 plus. You're supporting their weight. You need to consider whether you're actually strong enough to do that. But also in terms of supporting them emotionally, because a lot of these people, these patients, have neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's and dementia, a lot of the time they're not even aware of their reality, and a lot of them do actually end up feeling kind of caged in where they're at, because they're basically in this never-ending loop of forgetting and not remembering and not recognizing, and they just see themselves in this one room, this one area, this one house, and they might not even know why they're there. So it's not just a thing of, oh, I'm really sad and I'm ready to go, I'm ready to finish my life, but it's also a case of, I don't even know what this is right now, and I'm very confused, and to be honest with you, I don't like it. That's what they're going through, and you have to be in a good enough place to be able to rationalize that for them, not to take away their reality, but to educate the reality that they believe they're in. I don't know if that makes any sense, but for example, I had a lady who every single time I saw her, she always said to me, help me, I'm going to die. I don't know where I am and I don't know what we're doing. I never ever said to her, you're not gonna die, and you're in your home, this is where you live, and this is what you're doing, you know what we're doing, you know we have breakfast at this time. I never took away that reality and just said, no, what you believe is wrong. I would usually ask her why she feels like she's going to die, and then I would say to her, oh, you didn't know where we are, this is where we are. Oh, you didn't know what we were doing, we're just gonna do this at the moment. I'm sorry, I must have forgotten to tell you that we're having breakfast at the moment. Add to their reality. I ask why she feels that way so she can communicate it, and then I can rationalize it for her. So that way they feel like, oh yes, I don't know where I am, and that's true because she didn't tell me where I am. Not, I don't know where I am because there's something wrong with my mind. That only makes it worse for them. It makes it worse for their experience. And aside for this, I want to talk about it being emotionally taxing in terms of what you take home with you. Throughout the period I was working in the care home, I didn't even realize, but my opinions on death became very dark, and my opinions on life and living and the point of life and the purpose became extremely dark. I actually got a little bit of anxiety whilst working in a care home. I remember one night I was literally in bed crying my eyeballs out because of death. Literally because of the fact that I didn't understand what the point was that we were alive. Why are we alive if we're just gonna grow old and die? Why are we alive if in the end we're just gonna be experiencing our last few days by this terrible disease that's just gonna take us? What is the point of being here? I didn't even ask to be here. What is the point of this? That was literally where my mindset was at, and it was because that's what was being poured onto me. There was a lady and she was very depressed, and she wasn't happy at all, and I felt honestly so bad for her. But she would always say to me that she didn't want to be here, and she didn't understand why she was still here, and she didn't understand why they were forcing her to still be here. And that was the general vibe of a lot of the people there, and that scared me because I felt like that was going to be me. That is going to be me one day, and I don't understand why I was put here just to end up going through that. Like, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to live through that. I don't want to feel like dying for 20 years of my life, the last 20 years of my life. It can be very mentally taxing for you in terms of what you take home and what you then internalize for yourself. And the way I know that it was the care home doing that and not just the point of life that I was in was because the minute I stopped working at a care home, I no longer have these feelings. I'm no longer anxious about death. I'm no longer anxious about what my old age is going to look like, what my last few years of living is going to look like. In fact, I have a positive view of it now. Back then it was very much a thing of like, I don't want to die because I don't really feel feel like I'm gonna have fun doing it? And two, why was I even here to experience that? That's something to definitely be prepared for. Another thing that's very, very important is it takes a very, very long time to create a reciprocal bond with your patients, the residents, the people living in the care home. I say this because when I first started it off, when I was doing my training, they spoke so much about it being patient-centered care, and it's all about the person and caring for them and creating a bond with them, enjoying the time that you have with them. And the reality is it doesn't actually work like that. You don't click and make that instant bond. You're dealing with people that have neurodegenerative diseases. They don't have the full capacity to be able to connect with you in the way that a human being that doesn't have that disease would. It's important to be able to remember certain things that you've experienced with someone in order to build a bond with them, right? But if they're forgetting it, it's not really gonna build. They wouldn't even remember who I was, especially when I was first starting off. They didn't actually know who I was. For the day that I was there, we would build something, it'll be comfortable with me, but then it would be like starting all over again when I'd come back 2 days later. It might knock your spirits. It kind of did knock mine, because I felt like, oh, I'm not doing a good job then, because they're not creating this clicking bond with me. But it's really not your fault. It's just something that takes a very, very long time for them to reciprocate. It will take a long time for that trust and familiarity to be there and to be built. The next thing is to listen to their boundaries and make sure you're doing what they express that they're comfortable with. This can be honestly very hard, and you don't even have to be a bad person to not follow through with this. I was once helping a lady who had Alzheimer's get ready and dress for the day. This was early in the morning, 7 a.m. They had to be up at that time because breakfast was made at that time, and once you miss breakfast is not coming back, and they had to eat every single meal of the day. It was very, very imperative that they had their breakfast and they were up in time for breakfast. So I came in doing what I usually do, helping her out. This day she just wasn't having it, and she just didn't feel like it. She just was like, no, I don't trust you, I don't know who you are, I want to just stay in my bed. Like, who are you trying to get me dressed? I left her. I went to speak to her manager and I said, hey, she is expressing that she doesn't want to get out of bed and she wants to stay in bed. Can she not just stay there? And they said no, she needs to be out and out ready for breakfast, otherwise she will not eat breakfast, and she needs to eat breakfast. So I go back and I try my best to help her and persuade her into getting ready and having breakfast, and she wasn't having it. She hit me. It didn't really hurt, but it was a shock to me because I was like, oh, she's not happy here. I left her alone. I didn't try to negotiate with her anymore. I helped her back in bed, and I let her know that I was going to bring her breakfast to her in bed. And I told the manager that my instinct was right to not negotiate with her with what she wants to do. She wants to stay. It's 7 a.m, man. Like, if somebody was waking me up telling me come out of bed now and eat now at 7, I would probably be annoyed too. I'd probably hit them too. I just let her do what she expressed that she wanted to do. The reason why it's very hard to do that is because the managers will say to you, you need to make sure this is done. Getting them up, dressed, ready and eating breakfast is a task. Obviously, if you're at work and you don't get your tasks done, you're not performing well. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place, balancing putting the person's needs first and making sure you don't upset management. Be comfortable enough to make your own choice. Be comfortable enough to say, okay, do you know what, I'm gonna make this decision. That's what I did. I never went back and said, hey, I need extra hands to get her out of bed today because she's hitting me. I said, you know what, I'm gonna just make this choice. I think she should stay and I'll bring her breakfast. Always make sure when they're making their boundaries clear and what they want to do that day, and if they're really, really not having it and they really just don't want to go out, let them do what they need to do. Don't neglect them. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. After a while, maybe after like an hour, hey, do you want to come out and like watch a film with the rest of us? You want to do this? You want to do that? And most of the time they will then say yes, because they've had their time. They've been able to make their choice. They realize other people are having fun outside and they want to go too. The next thing I wanted to talk about is how personal hygiene is not as bad as you think. When I first was going into care home work and care working, I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to be seeing a stranger naked and cleaning them in the shower, but also after they use the toilet, going to the toilet with them, because some of them need assistance in the toilet. But it's not as bad as it seems. I had a very huge fear that whilst getting a man ready, that they might insinuate sexual favors from me and things like that, but I never had any of that. In terms of upkeep and hygiene of a stranger, when you actually do it, you disassociate. When I was doing it in the moment and I was helping them, I didn't deep, oh my god, that is poo. You just do it. It just becomes a thing that you need to get done. Like, they need that help, I'm doing it. In the moment, it's not actually as bad. It's not actually anything. It's just a person. If you're having that as a worry, you'll be fine. Trust me, that is not really a problem. The last thing I want to know is that the other co-workers that you're going to work with are generally not nice people. Very much juxtaposing the idea of being a care worker that's meant to care for people. They will do their job, but they're not nice people. And when I say this, I mean they will not help you. They will talk about you behind your back, especially if you're going to be an agency agency worker, especially if you're young, oh my goodness, the times when they see agency workers, they're like, oh yeah, somebody that we can make do all the work. They don't work here, so it's not really gonna get back to our managers like that, so it doesn't really matter, we can just make them do all the work. But no, put your foot down and trust in yourself and back yourself. That's a big thing you need to do when you enter a care home. If they start to jeopardize your role and how you're working, back yourself in what you think is the correct idea. I would say it's very, very important to use your intuition and use your common sense and back yourself if you feel like your idea makes the most sense, because a lot of the times they will impose ideas to you that are not what you're supposed to be doing, especially when it contradicts what you've been trained. Follow what you got trained. That is it for this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. This was something I really definitely wanted to speak about because, like I said, I don't think people actually know the realness, the reality of being in a care home and what to expect. I hope you guys found this video informational, interesting and helpful. If you have been a healthcare assistant before or you have anything to say, any questions, comment down below. If you're new here, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Follow me on my socials, it will be on the screen. It's keh-me on everything. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video.